This is the real deal, folks, okay? I'm here, he's here, we're both here. I don't know where that was going. He's focused. Focus, Lucas. Lucas, focus.
I don't know why, but I get stage fright every time we're like actually recording.
Yeah, for real, dude, me too.
Okay. I forget how we count down sometimes. I don't know if it's 3, 2, 1 or 1, 2, 3. Alright. 3, 2, 1.
What's up, everyone? Thanks for joining us this Wednesday afternoon for another episode of the Tea Time Podcast.
We don't necessarily need some tea, but grab a drink and join us for today's discussion. Today, we will be talking about Ikigai. Sounds kind of confusing, right? It's a Japanese word. Lucas will elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. So, we're no experts by any means, but Ikigai is this concept that revolves around the main idea of finding your reason for being, like why you exist, what your purpose in life is. There's 4 components to it, for like Venn diagrams, or a Venn diagram with like 4 circles, 4 components, which is the first one's what you love, the second is what the world needs, the third is what you can get paid for, and the fourth is what you're good at doing. And Ikigai is at the middle, and it's a combination of all 4 components. So it's essentially finding an activity that in your life that you enjoy doing that fulfills all 4 of those components and aspects.
Which I think, I guess like saying that to somebody is harder to grasp kind of what that means in general. Like, do you have an example you can use?
Yeah. So one example I think would be good is like photojournalism and just like photography. And so someone's Ikigai could be photojournalism because they could love it. You know, they love just taking photos. They can be good at taking photos and like editing photos. You can obviously get paid for photography, and then the world needs awareness because awareness helps with actually solving the issues because you're able to address them. So if someone worked for National Geographic, well, they get to travel the world, take photos that they're good at. They get paid for it because Nat Geo pays them, and then it's helping the world by exposing things that are going on all over. So that could be a real world example
Of Ikigai.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I mean, we've done our slight research, our prior research. We took this kind of from a video that you had brought up.
Yeah, check the link in the description.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the description so that, you know, you guys can check it out yourselves. Let us know what your comments are or what your thoughts on Ikigai are, you know, after ours or, you know.
Yeah, and if there's something we missed too, again, we're no experts, but we saw it and we thought it was pretty cool. And but yeah, let us know if you think there's something we should have included or if you have your own thoughts on it too.
I think moving forward, I think that what was the title of the video is kind of like helping you find something, like finding what you're going to love.
Yeah, do what you love and like find meaning and purpose in your life, you know, more or less.
So I think what are your thoughts about Ikigai itself? You know, just knowing the 4 components of it. What are your thoughts about it?
I think it's an awesome philosophy to have and kind of a great goal to set for yourself to try to achieve Ikigai, if you can say like you've achieved Ikigai, because it is able to fulfill a lot of human needs. You know, kind of if you maybe look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, like by doing something you get paid for, you're able to provide like a roof over your head and food, etc. So you like you're that sense of security is there, and then by doing something you're good at, you feel like you're accomplishing something, you're actually actively achieving something. By doing something you love, you're staying true to yourself and your own interests and passions. But then by doing something that the world needs, you're able to give from yourself and help others in need, and it just ends up being this really whole. I get that sense that once you achieve Ikigai, you just feel whole and complete.
It's like a journey of self-fulfillment almost.
Yeah.
Because I guess to me it sounds like from what we saw too. It sounds like it's a journey to self-fulfillment. But I don't think that's necessarily the entirety of it. You know, I think there's, like you said, there's other needs, and I think there's other aspects that go into it. Like, when do you know you start pursuing Ikigai? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Like maybe something like that. I guess tell me about yourself right now, or I can tell you about my Ikigai in general. I don't think I've reached that level of fulfillment in that sense, but you know, I look at my job, what I do. You know, I like doing it. I'm pretty good at it. I get paid for it. Offhandedly, though, you know, I don't think it necessarily benefits the world or the world's need or people's needs like directly, but I work in the food industry, so the food is necessary for everybody.
Right.
It can be fulfilling, but I don't think that aspect is being fully engaged.
Yeah.
You know,
I guess maybe we should take a step back, 'cause what you just said, like, are people pursuing Ikigai, or people fulfilling Ikigai? And I think maybe we should start there, kind of like, you know, what initiates someone to try to fulfill all these aspects of their life? Do people try to accomplish it even if they're unconscious of the concept of Ikigai?
Well, I think so. Just because we are humans with emotions,
Yeah.
and we are purpose-driven species. More, we are not just simply survival.
Yeah.
We're definitely purpose-driven for sure. So I think taking that step back, yeah, I think we unconsciously pursue Ikigai because past survival emotions come into play, and how do you cope with that?
Yeah.
By striving for something more, you know, by striving for fulfillment. You know, it's interesting that you bring up Ikigai in that sense, because I think a lot of people only think about 3 of those aspects ever, really, without the... I mean, he also brings it up in the video too, but what the world need aspect, you know?
It's probably the most often left out of the whole equation.
Most neglected, you know?
Yeah. And then I would argue that the second most neglected is like doing what you love. People are just like, I gotta get a job to make money, I gotta be good at it so I get paid well, and then everything else is either a hobby or I volunteer. They don't combine it all.
It, like, you know, the sayings, like, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, do you think that kind of relates to Ikigai in that sense?
Yeah, definitely, because, you know, personally, I also enjoy photography, right? I think I'm pretty decent at it. If I could get paid for it, like, you know, I guess that'd be pretty cool. But I never considered, like, how can if I did photography, like, how I never even considered, like, world needs, and then I never considered how photography can meet world needs. You know what I mean? I was just more of that not selfish, but like kind of that self-centered mentality. Kind of like in our episode about the human condition, where people are like mainly just focused on themselves, and like that world needs part is kind of left out of the equation.
we had a conversation about this before, and when you bring that up, I don't think people are necessarily taught that, you know what I'm saying, to
consider the world.
To consider the world. You know, I don't think that, I believe there's a certain point in your life where you start to consider the world simply because of your own curiosities and your own interests, and how people from past generations have used your interests in a positive manner that pertain to the world, but I don't think you're necessarily taught that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're not necessarily taught how to connect a majority of things that people do to how this is going to benefit the world, you know what I'm saying?
Do you think that has to do with the concept and like the pursuit of the American dream and kind of like individualism here in the States?
I think it definitely does. It has a heavy weight to it, especially because we're the Western culture. We're the Western culture, and that's what we're heavily driven by.
Work hard, make money, get a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm participating in it. I don't find it terrible, but it does leave me open to the thought, like, maybe this ideal of being fulfilled versus like making money and having a capitalistic kind of mentality is that conflicting? Will I ever reach fulfillment?
Yeah.
Because of how individualism is kind of driven in America. Like I said, I don't think it's taught. So I bring this up again. We talked about this before, but I think it should be taught somewhere. I guess in the educational system, right? Or places where you learn these kind of values. You know, what does the world need, you know?
Yeah.
I personally think there are a lot of places where you learn what the world needs and how you contribute to that, or how you also take away from that.
Yeah.
One place can be family, like your nuclear family, your nuclear home, education.
Yeah. But even the workplace too, I would argue that I think there needs to be more awareness of the idea that you can combine all of these things together, because I think that people aren't aware that there's things they can do in their life to meet all these components. You know, when people think of like video games, for example, right? Like someone can be good at video games and it's their passion, but that's all they see it as, and they're kind of constricted by this not the mental block, but inability to see potential for gaming to be something bigger. You know, like now esports are a big thing, and you can get paid for gaming, right? But you can also so you'll fulfill all or 3 parts of Ikigai, but then like what about world needs? How does video gaming contribute to world needs? Well, maybe you can start a nonprofit organization where like you, I don't know, send out video game consoles to kids in need, or you like host tournaments for kids in need that are like free or whatever, right? And so that way you're able to like combine all of them, right? And like it all revolves around gaming. And I think people they think very, it's a compartmentalized mentality. I guess that might be the best way that I can put it. But people don't think abstractively and creatively, how can I bring all of these together into one aspect of my life, right? So I think that kind of like what you're saying, it needs to be taught, but like throughout everywhere, and people need to keep pushing this mentality, like, hey, you know, okay, this is awesome that you get paid for this and you're good at it, but like, how can you also incorporate your own interests and passions into this, and then share it with the world in a positive way?
Yeah. Another thing I kind of want to bring up, like going off of that, is that, you know, the way you're saying it is that we're not taught for sure. I'm not saying that. I feel like I'm gonna misconstrue your words, but the way you're saying it, the way I'm understanding it, is that these things can go together, right? Kind of going back to the individualist kind of ideal or thoughts, right?
Yeah.
I have my own thoughts about like Ikigai too, right? Maybe you can interpret it. Maybe you can interpret it differently. You mentioned it earlier too, like maybe this is the Western kind of version of Ikigai. You know what I'm saying? Because Ikigai is more of an Eastern cultural driven.
Yeah, it comes from Japan.
Concept, you know. So finding one activity, right, that can fulfill all four things is Ikigai conceptually what it is, right?
Right.
My thoughts on it are different, like just to say that maybe it's not just one activity, but it's a pursuit of different things throughout your entirety of your existence.
Right.
That, let's say you're doing something, and maybe we can kind of dive into the explanation of the Venn diagram a little bit, like how it combines the things. Right? Yeah. But and
I'm gonna try to add a picture so like as we're talking about it, you can like see it too and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be nice. We can do that. But you know, let's say I have my job. I get paid. I'm good at it. I like to do it. It's lacking the world need, right? It's not so much that I can't combine that, but it's just not driven for that, right?
And I can imagine it's a little difficult too, because now like all of a sudden you can just start a philanthropy division at your company.
Yeah.
You know, like
it's like there has to be some type of backing and support for it.
It's a little more complicated.
Yeah, it's a little bit more complicated. So that being said, like, will I ever find Ikigai working for a company?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even though it does fulfill the majority of the things. So I kind of come back to the idea, like, maybe I don't necessarily need to have one activity that fulfills all of them, but I have maybe this activity fulfills this activity fulfills these three things, this activity fulfills these three things, but I'm fulfilled in doing all those things because they're different aspects, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily, it's not one activity,
right?
You know. But like I think of reason for being, like your purpose is, I guess it's subjective, right?
Yeah.
So let's say I'm under the belief now, right? My reason for being is to connect with people and share my experiences while also enjoying their experiences that they share.
Yeah.
Or we have actual immediate experiences as well. I think that's just like kind of the purpose of living at this point, you know?
Yeah.
You make connections, you improve your life, you become a better person, and you leave the world a better place than you came into it.
Right.
You know? So my thoughts are like, that's my purpose, right? So if my purpose is that, how can I do that in different aspects and not just one way, you know what I'm saying? Not just one way, because I don't want to just do it one way.
Yeah.
You know?
I guess. I think I'm starting to, because we have talked about like Ikigai a little prior to this episode, and I think I'm starting to kind of understand where your perspective is, and like, because I think I'm focused on this thing that like Ikigai has to be one specific activity that you do that fulfills all of it. But the way that Ikigai is kind of explained is like reason for being, and that in and of itself, that statement is extremely subjective, because like, what's your reason for being? You know, I mean, dude, we're humans, like it's infinite reasons, right? And I think it's more of like a, because Ikigai is like this conceptual this like concept that revolves like multiple components, I think your reason for being also has to like revolve around multiple components and be composed of multiple things, and not just like one activity that you're gonna do for the rest of your life, and like that's your only Ikigai. You know, like it. I think I'm starting to see your like train of thought that in an argument that it's more than just that. Like it's this bigger abstract thing that it doesn't have to be defined with a specific point. You know, it could just be like a broad paint stroke type of. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Am I interpreting it the right way?
Yeah. Because I mean, my thought is this: like, I'm doing what I'm doing, right? I'm trying to become a flavor chemist.
Yeah.
My company does things for the environment around it, and I'm very happy for it because they're helping the world, and by me doing what I'm doing, I'm contributing slightly to that, you know. But I also want to directly contribute to the world, you know what I'm saying? And I don't think right now where I am, how I'm doing it, is directly helping the world.
Yeah.
So I want to do that, right? By having other means of helping the world with my purpose for being, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like it kind of comes back to, well, what do I want to, like, what is my purpose right now? Like, what do I believe my purpose is? And how am I going to achieve that? Yes, I need money. Yes, I'm good at stuff. I like these things, but I do want to help the world. Maybe I don't necessarily have to entangle all of those so that I can do more, you know what I'm saying? Because my thoughts are this, I even said it to you earlier, like, I'd rather be a millionaire, do what I like to do, right? Pursue that interest, maybe not for a selfish reason, but pursue that interest so that I'm actively still, you know, learning and doing something because I like it and I'm good at it,
right? While
also pursuing helping the world by my purpose, connecting with others, understanding others, understanding myself, and helping people to come to that own conclusion for themselves too. I guess in that means and aspects, you know?
Yeah. And that makes sense because it makes it seem like when you said like, oh, I just want to be a millionaire, I think it's more the idea that you don't have to worry about money, right? And I think maybe this is where, you know, I or we are interpreting Ikigai the wrong way, because maybe you don't have to find something that pays you or like sustains you financially, or it's like your main source of income, but maybe it's more of an idea like something that doesn't take away from you and leave you worse off.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way like to think about it, you know? Because like what I would feel if I had, you know, $10 million in my bank account, I would totally, and then I found a job that doesn't pay me but fulfills like something I'm good at, a passion, and the world needs, I would still feel fulfilled because I wouldn't be worried about money. I wouldn't worry that it would pay me because I don't need to be paid because I'm already financially like well off and stable and don't have to worry about that anymore. So I would still feel fulfilled even if that specific thing didn't contribute to or didn't pay me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm getting at, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I think the factors, the weight of the factors, like the different aspects of Ikigai, like you said, play a part, I think. Just because, if I didn't have to financially think about things, then I would obviously... This is kind of like flip side too. I would obviously want to do something good for the world and do something that I like and that I'm good at, right?
Yeah.
But like, imagine this, because this is like a conflicting thing too. People are, the way that we are driven now, right? It's financial.
Yeah.
A lot of it is financial.
Like you want to be rich, wealthy.
For what purpose? Most purposes are for the fact of just being rich and wealthy. Most, not all. No, not all. What drives that though? what drives that? You know?
Yeah.
I want to say, like, it's our own self. Like, if you think, we brought this up before too, the sins, like the 7 sins. Right?
Yeah, and I argue that it's just ego. Yeah.
It's just ego at the end of the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's driving you. But for your personal Ikigai, one of the sins is waiting heavily on you to drive you to reach a certain state of Ikigai. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like, definitely I think it just kind of falls back to that human condition thing we talked about, where it is the self, and it's on you, you know. I think, taking one step back to what you said earlier, I think that how you said, like, the different components weigh differently in people's lives. I think that's totally true. And because people are just programmed differently. Some people are a lot more giving of themselves, and while that might seem great on the surface, it can be detrimental too, because sometimes they give so much of themselves that they forget to, like, look out for themselves. Whereas other people, you know, they might seem selfish because they don't do any volunteer work, they don't do anything for what the world needs, but they're ensuring their own safety and well-being and that of their families, or, like, their close ones. So it's just a matter of, like, prioritizing it, but then taking a slight step past your ego and addressing the unaddressed areas of Ikigai and facing your sins.
Facing your sins, that's what stops you.
Yeah. What are the 7 sins?
Hold on. Let me see if I can remember all of them really quick.
Well, there's 2 of us, so.
It's greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, sloth, and pride. Yep.
My guy.
That's all of them. That is all of them. Yep.
Yeah. I think
it's what you said before, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's ego, right?
Yeah.
It's yourself. You have to kind of get over that to get to the Ikigai. And I like how you brought up the 2 different kind of things. Like, you could be doing something overly giving, right? Like, very giving. But you would lack the financial part, right?
there's just costs and benefits to everything.
There's costs and benefits to everything. But another thing that I want to bring up, right? Maybe that person that overly gives and doesn't worry about themselves in that sense is fulfilled without that financial part.
Because they already have finances, or
no, because that's their fulfillment, you know.
Because, like, they need to live too. I mean, they need to eat and they need a place to sleep.
That's true.
And if they're doing it for pennies a day and they're able to get by and they're, like, still healthy, they're not, like, starving themselves or anything, and they just, like, live in a hostel or a shack, and they're happy with that, then yeah, absolutely. Then maybe it's like, oh yeah, you know, it's awesome that you do give so much of your time, but at that point, the only investment they can make is time, because if they don't have a lot of finances, then, like, they can only fulfill world needs by investing their time. They can't invest they don't have any financial needs to invest, you know? But again, that's a cost and another benefit, because if you now find a job that requires a greater investment of your time, but in return you get more money that you can use to fulfill world needs, well, then that's just a different way to do it, you know. But let's go back to us and, like, our Ikigais.
Oh God. Okay. You want to start? I don't know. How do you want to address this?
I mean, I guess I can start. It's, you know, because again, this is just like anyway. I was, and I've shared it with you, like, you know, a couple months ago. I was in this rut that I was like, what is my purpose in life? Like, what's the point of all this? I think we even talked about it in an episode.
Yeah, and then you got real dark about it. I was just like, who hurt you?
And so I was like, you know, I went through that week where it was just really just heavy on my mind, like, what's the point of all this? We're eventually all gonna die, whatever. And yeah, I don't want to get dark again. And these past 2 weeks, you know, I'm still looking for work, still applying to jobs, and I've been kind of thinking, like, okay, I haven't gotten any job offers yet or any interviews, and I'm kind of wondering, like, am I going down the right path? Am I, is this something that am I not getting hired because I'm just not going to be good at it? Is this actually what I want to pursue? Am I going to be, be able to find a job that actually pays me, or is this like an interest that I'm pursuing? And so I'm really happy that the Ikigai video came up and I saw it and watched it, because it made me, then I sat with it a couple days, and then after you, Eric, and I hung out and talked about it, it kind of solidified me in a resolve that was starting to build in my mind after watching it, that me pursuing jobs in the public sector and for government, specifically jobs that are like a policy analyst or research analyst, somebody that just looks at different programs and things that are being implemented or want to be implemented, or find problems in specifically education, figure out policies and solutions to them. That's something that definitely interests me, right? And so I enjoy doing the research and critical thinking and problem solving. So I'd say that's my passion. I think I'm good at it in the sense that I'm creative in how to think about solutions. I think I can see a bigger perspective in the big picture and take in multiple components, but that's something I can definitely work on. I know I can get paid for a job like that, and it definitely fulfills a world need, because if there's a problem in society, I want to solve it, right? And so I'm not doing philanthropy work, but I am investing my time, and as a result, helping other people. In the process, I'm getting paid for it, and it fulfills the mental stimulation that I need, right? Yeah. My passion, my love for it. So I think I'm definitely in the ballpark of my Ikigai in terms of the jobs that I'm applying for. Now, to take it one step further, is that going to be my Ikigai for the rest of my life? No. And we talked about this too, that okay, well, once you find it, is that the only thing you have? Or you asked the question, can you have multiple Ikigais? I think you definitely can. I mean, it's like we said earlier in this episode, it's like an abstract concept. And so that, don't confine yourself in any way. So I think initially, while in the beginning I want to be the analyst and do that type of work, I can always move up to be a director or a manager of some sort. And then there's higher positions above that, start my own nonprofit or policy center or think tank, or then actually move into the government and be a decision maker and not just create policy, but actually implement them and push them forward. Yeah. So I guess that would be, if we're thinking about Ikigai in the right way, that would be mine. That would entail everything, and just bring it all together into one entity.
That's interesting, because the way you say it now is just you're in constant pursuit of Ikigai, So it's maybe you have one Ikigai for real. That's it. You have one, but you're constantly pursuing and evolving that Ikigai to something more refined. Yeah. Or maybe you can, well, in your case, it's more of a refinement over time with I don't want to say the same Ikigai, because I think your Ikigai kind of evolves as you evolve and mature as a person too.
Yeah, I think, not to cut you off, but I think, because I know where I want to be in life. I know what I want to achieve with my life, so that when I'm on the deathbed, I'm yeah, I did what I want to. I know what that is. I have it in my mind. Now, right now, it's more of a abstractual type of thing. I'm starting to connect okay, what professions, what jobs can get me to achieve that? And I think that's the Ikigai I see, that final Super Saiyan form. And once I get there, I won't need to go any higher, but I recognize that in order to get there, I have to go through a couple other steps. I can't just jump, because it's too big of a leap. It's just not really feasible. And so I need to go through these other areas, but I recognize that those are also fulfilling. And to the concept of Ikigai, but also to myself to get to that final form.
And it sounds like as you're progressing through your Ikigai, you know, in the same way that you're refining your Ikigai, you refine yourself. So at the end of the day, I feel like your Ikigai will change entirely once you continually pursue it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're always going to be pursuing Ikigai in that sense.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In the same way that I'm probably always going to be pursuing Ikigai.
In your sense.
In my sense.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is?
Oh, yeah, I guess we can talk about my Ikigai. I guess my Ikigai, if we go off the understanding like of one thing fulfilling all four things, I don't know what an Ikigai is, you know, personally.
Yeah.
But maybe I have an idea of where I want to be, as in maybe an Ikigai that would maybe fulfill all four things.
Yeah.
But I have like a different thought about it, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think Ikigai can be separate, you know? You can do one thing and keep refining it, keep refining it, keep refining it, and perfect it, and, you know, achieve that final form at one point. But I don't think you'll ever really, me personally don't ever think you'll ever become the perfect final form, right?
Yeah.
Because one, you're always going to refine it, and two, we're not perfect. We're never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you should stop pursuing something for that reason. It just means that you're pursuing it for the pursuit of all four things being fulfilled. So I asked you a question before, and I'll continue with my Ikigai right now, but I asked you a question before. It was like, what happens after you reach Ikigai? And I kind of like come back to that question because it's like, well, do you ever reach Ikigai?
I get, yeah.
Like, do you really ever reach Ikigai? And when you do, what is the next step after that? Do you become a teacher to tell people how to reach Ikigai too?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's just a thought. I kind of want to throw it out there because...
But maybe one of the viewers can help us with.
Yeah, like, let us know your thoughts. Like, it weighs on my mind a little bit. Like, where... If you reach an Ikigai, Eric had brought up a good point at one point. He said, you know, your grandparents, they live their life. And at one point, retirement happens. Right? Do you retire from your Ikigai, or do you pursue a different Ikigai? Is your refinement of Ikigai different at that point?
Yeah.
You know?
That is true, too. I didn't even...
And, like, what's the next step after Ikigai? It's like, there's not an end, you know? There's not an end. And if there was, low-key, we would probably just die. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. At least internally, like, for sure, like, we'd have no more reason for being.
There would literally be no reason for being.
Yeah, but what does happen when you retire?
Well, people pursue, like, traveling the world, learning about the outer world, if they haven't already done that.
Yeah.
You know, actively pursuing their Ikigai in general, you know? So I bring that concept up. Help us try to understand it, like what your thoughts are about it, because, you know, it's kind of like the pursuit of happiness. Are you going to constantly be pursuing your happiness?
Yeah, yeah. But, go ahead.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say it kind of comes back to, like, the seven...
the sins, and that's why I bring it up, because you're constantly driven by...
Not, you know, and we bring up the 7 sins, not for, like, any religious reasons or anything like that, but if you just think about them as, like, aspects of life, then they totally, you know, make sense, I think, fit in here. Because, like, if you retire and you're unfulfilled with what you did in your life, then maybe you didn't reach Ikigai. I think I made the argument that, like, when you retire, we all have to be, like, conscious. We all are aware and conscious of the fact that, like, as we grow older, our bodies age and deteriorate, our minds age and deteriorate, and we're no longer capable of doing the exact same things we were when we were younger. And I think once that's taken into consideration, like, just accept it as a fact, I think no one can hold it against you. They're like, oh, you're retired, you're just an old man, you're not doing enough, blah, blah, blah. It's like, bro, like, I am an old man. I can't run as fast, work for as many hours, stand on my feet for as long as you can, you know? And like, old people still volunteer and do what they love and go out. But I think if you did reach fulfillment at one point in your life, and there's no reason for you to feel unfulfilled later, because you just come to an acceptance that I'm no longer able to do those same things, but not because of any of the 7 sins like sloth or wrath or whatever, but because physically you're just no longer capable of doing it. You know, you've reached, your warranty's expired, and you're reaching the end of.
There's no renewing your warranty.
Yeah, you're reaching the end of your functional lifespan, so to speak. And so I think as long as you reach it at one point, then you're fine. And if you don't reach Ikigai, well, either you're just unaware of it, or the 7 sins start to play, and then you're just too prideful to acknowledge the fact that you're missing a component, or there's too much sloth where you're too lazy to actually pursue it and do something about it, or any of the other 7, you know.
When you say that, like, that's the point of, like, hey, you reached Ikigai, and now you're fulfilled, and now you kind of do whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I think my question goes back to, we are very driven by the need for purpose, you know what I'm saying? And when you're old, at one point, yeah, you may be satisfied and have been fulfilled, right?
But what's your new purpose now?
But if you don't have a purpose, do you need a new purpose? Do you need a new purpose? Will you fall back into patterns in which were a detriment to having enlightenment or been fulfilled, you know?
Do you have anything in mind, or can you expand on that a little? Because it's kind of...
let's say, okay, you retire. You reached your Ikigai. You're fulfilled.
Now you're retired.
Let's say you reached your Ikigai before you retired.
Yeah.
You retired, and you're like, now I'm gonna be a fool. A whole barnacle. Like, I'm just gonna like do this and do that.
Yeah.
Maybe drink a lot, or maybe not. Maybe I'll take care of myself still. I'm gonna take care of myself. I'm gonna still travel the world. Like, do you become a teacher? Like, it's like, what more do you have to offer if you're not continuously offering something
other than wisdom?
I
guess wisdom is at the end
the final thing, right?
Kind of, yeah. Like, you've reached enlightenment, and now maybe because you've gotten to that point, it's just on you to help pave the way for the future generations to also be able to reach that moment. Because when you think about it, like, when we're all born, like, I wasn't born with the idea of Ikigai. Someone had to teach it to me, right? But they're only able to teach it to me once they've accomplished it and reached Ikigai. But in the meantime, while they're still pursuing it, they're investing that time in themselves and in that pursuit and in fulfilling all 4 of those. And then once they achieve that and retire, they still have time they can invest, but now they just reinvest it in teaching the future generations so they can fulfill Ikigai. And it's like, becomes this rinse and repeat Zen reincarnation cycle.
It's a cycle.
Oh, this is totally an Eastern concept.
I told you, it's totally a cycle. And the way that we think about it, like, you brought it up before, and I keep bringing it up, like, we think about it Westernly. Yeah. And that's why, going back to my Ikigai, right?
I mean, we think about it Westernly, but...
Ooh! Going back to my Ikigai, right?
Yeah.
I think you definitely need to hit all aspects, but I don't think you need to do one thing that's going to hit all aspects of Ikigai.
Yeah.
I think
it can be kind of a mix and fluid.
The way I'm interpreting it is that you're on this journey of purpose, right? And once you understand who you are as a person, because I think that's where it's really driven at the end of the day, you know, for most things, if you don't get what you need as a person, like emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, then you won't know what you can do and how to bring all four of those aspects together in the entirety of your journey to actually reach Ikigai. And that's where I think I'm coming to a point where I'm 26 now. I'm realizing the things that I lacked as maybe a teenager, as a child, and like in adolescence, like growing up, like into adulthood. You know, I'm realizing those things that were missing that I needed as a whole to actually understand what my purpose is. You know, I'm understanding what my purpose is now, and that's why I'm like, you know, I believe to understand the world around you and give to the world around you. And I think this comes to why that world need is so hard to attach to the other three, is because people don't fully understand themselves to be able to openly understand somebody else. Kind of goes back to the ego thing and the sins. You know, once you reach once you reach an Ikigai within yourself, you can reach a greater Ikigai for the world, which the cycle continues. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I brought up before an audiobook called, what was it? The King.
Magician, Lover, Warrior.
Yeah.
I don't know if I got the order right.
I think it's King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. And it's a book heavily related to masculinity and maturing from an adolescence into an adult. I do believe there's an opposite spectrum where it's like femininity, right? From going to adolescence to adult, and they address humans as man and woman, you know, and what you need to become a full adult in that sense. And if you're missing some things, then you're obviously going to have aspects of your character that are going to show negatively to the world, and that's going to hinder you because you're obviously going to be self-defensive to some extent, because there's just no avoiding that. It's really hard to take criticism and keep it constructive, because that's just how we are. We're emotional creatures, you know. It's hard for me too. So that being said, I think I'm really coming to an understanding of myself so that I can understand others better, because that's what I think my purpose is. That's what I think my Ikigai is. I don't think it's driven in a job or a career. You know, I think it's more personal. For me, my Ikigai is more of a personal thing, where I didn't understand aspects of myself, but my Ikigai is to get people to understand aspects of themselves while connecting others, you know?
So you were saying like a world need would be maybe to like start tying like tangible concepts. Would you argue a world need is like self-awareness and knowledge of your own person, and you want to fulfill that world need, but in order to do so you first have to understand yourself, because if you can't understand yourself, how can you teach others to understand themselves? Is that kind of like, am I picking up on what you're throwing down?
So I mean, this is all to say that that's my part of world needs that I want to address. The other four aspects, you know, if I think about, you know, hey, I want to connect with people, I want to be able to teach people this, maybe teach, I don't know if teach is the right word, but I want to, you know, help others understand themselves.
Right.
For me, I think, well, I'm good at connecting with people.
You love connecting.
I love connecting with people. Can I get paid for it? Sometimes. There's some way of form to get paid with connecting to people.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's where I think you can combine your Ikigais, because that, for me, that my world needs fulfillment is not greater, but it's separate from my career and how my career fulfills that Ikigai kind of conceptually, you know? So I kind of want to combine both, because why can't I pursue this while also pursuing something for myself at the same time? You know?
Yeah, true.
And still be fulfilled doing all these things because it's my purpose. That's my reason for being, you know what I'm saying? And I'm providing my financial stability to be able to give back to the world, while also, you know, tentatively doing other things.
It kind of makes me, that train of thought kind of makes me think back to what we were saying earlier, that, you know, the different people might prioritize the four different components differently throughout their lives, right? And when you're first starting off, like you and I right now, we're both prioritizing getting paid, because we know that financial stability paves the path for a lot of other things, right? Like if you don't have to worry about money, then it puts your mind in a different perspective. It just takes a significant and heavy worry out of your life and opens your mind up to other things, right? More positive things. And I think, like, when you retire, you get, you know, your retirement, and so your get paid for something circle shrinks a lot, because you no longer have to, like, you still have to get paid, but now it doesn't necessarily have to be through the means of what you're actually doing, because you have your retirement, you achieve what the level of living, hopefully, that you want in your life. So now you're not so much more focused on you know, getting paid. So that allows the other four aspects to grow a lot more, and you know, take up the space that was left in the wake of that, you know. So
my thought is kind of coming back to that cycle, you know what I'm saying? I think a lot of that cycle needs to be taught at a young age, and you get that from various places, like I said, like your family, school, if you're religious, if any type of way, a community of, like, people other than your family, you know, outside community. You need your family communal, your communal family, and then, you know, education at the same time, because you have to be open to learning these different things and how to get to that point.
Yeah.
But if you're not getting it in one aspect, then, you know, it kind of comes back to yourself. You know, how are you fulfilled within yourself to be able to reach your Ikigai? Like, maybe you miss something in your family, but you get something communally. You know, maybe you miss something communally, but you get something from education. You know, maybe you miss something educationally, but your family taught you something of the sort too.
Yeah, and it kind of balances itself out. Yeah. Like, your community could teach you, like, street smarts, but school obviously teaches you, like, formal smarts, and your family teaches you values. And so they all contribute to make you one whole person.
I definitely think, for me, Ikigai comes from a place within, like, you know, like Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, it has to come from within. And then it's definitely refinement for me at the end of the day. I don't think you can have just one Ikigai. I think there are people that do, you know, for sure. And when they do, it's like, you know, you're pushing forward for, like, a better Ikigai, a more refined idea of your values at that point. You know? I don't think it's bad.
Yeah.
I think it's just, like, my concept of it is we can combine thing. You don't necessarily have to do one thing, because your purpose for being constantly changes through the flow of your journey in time.
As you accomplish different things in your life and reach different levels of existence, I guess, of living. Yeah.
So I think you have to combine them. That's where my stance is on it. And everything. So that's, like, my Ikigai. You know what I'm saying? And I think I'm trying to actively pursue it, knowing that I'm never going to be able to connect with everybody in the world, but I want to be able to connect with as many people as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, if I died now, like, I would be happy knowing that I connected with the people that I did, thinking that maybe I had made a difference in their life,
Mm-hmm.
however big or small,
Yeah.
you know?
Maybe your Ikigai isn't chemistry, like the science chemistry. Maybe it's human chemistry.
Human chemistry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like what goes on inside of us, what makes us us. And I'm not talking like the biology, I'm talking about like the personality, the mental, the spiritual, you know?
Mm.
Maybe your Ikigai is public speaking.
It might be. I could, you know, tell the masses, hello, my name is Amadeo.
Yeah. But I don't know, man. There's so many.
There's so many aspects.
Yeah.
I remember bringing this up just because, like, we were kind of being conflictive of each other at one point. But I was like, you know, a lot of it is, when you think about it, the way your personality is versus my personality,
Mhm.
I think I'm more like a primal, you know, and you're more logical.
Okay. Yeah.
You know,
I can see that.
and I think you know that too. Like,
Yeah,
I do.
I do.
I think you know that too. So it's like,
And they both have their strengths and weaknesses,
Mhm.
but that's just who we are. That's
So-
what makes you Amadeo and what makes me Lukasz.
and that's when I came to the realization that the entirety of all of it,
Yeah.
I'm like, you just need balance. You just
Yeah.
need balance.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important too to not try to replicate or mimic other people that have, like, it's important to recognize where you lack in your own way, just like be aware of it and kind of work towards implementing that and making yourself more well-rounded and whole. You know, like, I don't want to stop being me,
Mhm.
but I think I can definitely learn a lot from you in your primal ways
Mhm.
and incorporate that in my life.
Yeah.
Right?
And in the same aspect that, like, I'm not gonna stop being me.
Yeah.
But I definitely can learn
So a little more logic.
a little bit more logic-driven kind of things.
I need to learn to come back to monkey.
And I need to learn how to come to better humans.
But it's I mean, yeah, there's so many components to it and so many influences, and it is really fluid. And I think I was going into this like with just a very rigid mentality and these like boundaries that I made up for this concept of Ikigai. But maybe in reality, like, it is just a lot more fluid, more open, and kind of like just go with the flow and find your own reason for being. And no one can tell you what it is, and you can't tell yourself what it is. You just have to be aware of like where the resistance is in your life and where you're not, or like where there's voids, and like go around them until you come to a place where you're like fully enshrined by what makes you happy.
That was beautiful imagery. By the way, that was beautiful imagery. Whole time I was floating down that river.
Yeah.
And I was just like zooming past the rocks. And then I eventually reached the lake, in which I was just like floating in my fulfillment.
Oh, well, I'm here every Wednesday.
Of course, me too. Me too. I think we should wrap it up because honestly, the last time we talked about this was for a minute. It was for a minute.
It was, but no, yeah, I think this is a good place to end. Please, honestly, like this, we definitely want to hear what you have to say because, you know, like Amadeo said, we could talk about this forever and keep nitpicking and pulling on the threads, but we wanted to open up to you. What did we miss? What are your Ikigais? What do you think it is? What do you prioritize in your life?
Let us know.
Yeah.
Like, what's your Ikigai? This will help me connect with you better, honestly.
Yeah, seriously. It'll help us refine ourselves and whatnot. But
see,
yeah.
I had another idea that I want to bring up, but like I'm gonna just leave it at that because I do this a lot. I do this a lot. One more thing.
Another one.
Another one.
Another one.
Another one. Yeah. For
But
real.
Hey, maybe we'll have a part 2 or in a couple weeks or something after we get enough responses. You can just save that thought. And we'll drop it in the comments or something or add it somewhere. So, but anyway, thanks for tuning in.
Till next week.
Like, share, subscribe. Adios.
Deuces. Pooches.
イタチ、最後に約束しろ。
分かってるわ。